is what comes to everybody's mind when they hear about a digital person or a department or somebody in digital. They are scared, but they do not know that, so don't take into other sense that I'm here talking about Marvel Comics. No, I'm not there. I'm just telling you that this is the power of digital. It may look scary, but eventually it needs to be used more strategically, uh, more into more productive manner rather than using it intrusively. So that's one point that I would like to tell everybody here who are aspiring digital marketers, that never use it intrusively, because that will increase the kind of scare that people typically have with digital. uh, Again, use it more strategically. I've seen in companies, people will come up with saying that, I have this big idea, I want to do Facebook. uh, I have this big idea, I want to do YouTube. You'll find all kind of people there saying this. So one thing which I will tell all digital marketers is, be courageous enough to ask them that why. What do you want to achieve out of it? Why should we do Facebook and not a Twitter? Why should we do YouTube and not an Instagram? So I think those are courageous questions that you need to ask whenever somebody comes to you saying that I want a campaign in digital, because the campaign is not just to do a tick mark or just to do something. Now these are some basics which will be required when anybody is in a corporate or in an organization. Why are we doing? We are trying to solve a problem. That problem could be a marketing problem, could be a business problem, but we are there to solve a problem. So it's not that we are there to show some innovative skills. Yes, we will have to and we should be, but then it also needs to solve the problem there. And that's why we said that rather than looking at just a juncture, think strategically, think about the whole life continuum, that how a consumer or a customer can add value to your organization or to your function, and not just using it as a lead or using it as just one transaction. uh, and that's why, when we do these two things, I think people will embrace digital more and more. They will not be scared about digital, because they will know that okay, digital is there as a friend, not as there who will kind of snatch away everything, or it's something that we don't understand. They will understand it in their language, because most of the time digital folks do face this challenge that their language people do not understand, and what other people want to understand they cannot get to hear from a digital folk. So learn how to use, and then explain things in their language, though obviously using your own tactics. Now that's what I said, that when we say that digital is an enabler, that doesn't mean that digital only sits with marketing. Now this is a typical scenario which we see in most of the organizations, that digital folks are there only working with the marketing team. In bigger organization, and that's how people are now understanding the organizations better. In bigger organizations, digital is used by all departments. So even the customer care team uses digital because they have to solve the customer inquiries and complaints on social media. Uh, uh, Chatbots are being developed, for the customer care, so that lesser cost is there for the call center. All those things are happening. Similarly, human resource, so talent acquisition, right? So most of the HR department, when they have to acquire talent of various having various proficiencies, specialities, definitely digital can be used. So in Philips, we actually run digital campaigns for HR team. Similarly, employee engagement, right? Because these are the employees who eventually become your brand ambassador outside the organization. So that's why it is also used with HR. Marketing, we all are aware about it. We can do so many things with marketing. And typically the way that marketing is changing is like everything will become a digital marketing eventually at some point of time, because my television is becoming smart TV, my mobile handset has everything, it's in my palm. And that's how, outdoors are becoming more smarter. So that's why we see that the marketing team plays a very big role in kind of elevating digital sales, because eventually these sales people are going and meeting the customers. They are going and talking to the consumers and customers or the channel partners. So they are becoming more and more digital savvy. The role of Amazon and Flipkart plays a very important role here, because eventually for most of the brands, the channel pie is shifting towards online. right? So lesser offline, traditional, more and more Amazon and Flipkarts of the world are, doing the game there. So if you see that the sales is also now very keen, and people now, that sales professionals that we are hiring, they do understand the digital sales pretty well, or they do understand the online channel very well. uh, Also, they can do a lot of events. With COVID-19, the best situation, nobody can meet. What will sales do here, because they cannot go and meet their customers? But after, god forbid, if we kind of have be there in the lockdown situation for the next 3 months, what will happen to the customer relation? So virtual events or webinars, and Raj, you are already taking all of this, doing these virtual sessions for people. So this is how we keep on getting connected with the customers and consumers and your audience. Finance and legal, because they need systems to be developed. They also need information dissemination. They have certain things which they want to disseminate to various audience. They want to engage with the customers at time. So this is how they do. And the most important is leaders. So you will see that most of the companies who are pretty popular on digital, these companies, the leaders are also very socially savvy. They are present, they position themselves on digital, they position themselves on social. They talk about their profession, they talk about the organization, but they also talk about the social cause, they also talk about their family. And that's why they are considered to be more human than before. And that's how the leaders can also create brands or destroy brands that way. This slide took a lot of time, but you will also understand that why we say that digital is not a disruptor. It can be a disruptor, but it is an enabler as well for all the departments and not just marketing. Uh, the world is changing. Consumers are becoming more demanding. Industry is dynamic. The VUCA world is there, which is, it's very volatile, is uncertain, it's ambiguous. That's how the world is. Before I shift to there, any people who would like me to also kind of translate few of the things in Hindi, or is it fine? Raj, if there's something in chat, just let me know.
Yeah, sure, sure. If there in any case, people can directly personally message me on the chat window. I'll
Yeah.
happy to share the feedback with the Shweta. You can continue, Shweta.
Okay, good. So the power has actually shifted from the brands to consumers. We all know about it very well, right? Any problem that we face while receiving the content, receiving the product, we kind of go and raise it on social media. It has never happened. If you see some of the numbers there, digital is now mainstream. Definitely, there are huge numbers there which are talking about internet users, more than 500 million. Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, these are some significant number of subscribers which are there. The numbers may change slightly depending on the source, but we are pretty close to more than 40% of the penetration for overall. And then we should not forget about mobile there, because mobile handsets are there with everybody. Most of you digital marketing folks may be already knowing this number. We are already heading towards a 74 crores internet users by 2021. So that's the kind of scale that we are looking at. If you look at the kind of time spent per day with major media, you'll see that mobile playing a big role. We all know that. Advertising has also grown a lot in digital. It's growing by 30%. Rest of them are very slow. They are all growing in India, but they are very low at this moment. So 50% of Indians are Gen Z or millennials. 75% of them are online. The reason that why we are putting this number, because this will tell the majority of the campaign types or the audience will fall in this bracket. Uh, if you talk about that, what are they doing? So millennials are people. So Gen Z, you all know, people who were born like in the 2000. All of them are Gen Z. If you talk about millennials, they are people slightly born before. And if you see what they are doing, uh, Gen Z is more around information, entertainment and everything. Millennials are more around utility. So that's how the two types of audience currently are there, and they are leveraging digital. This is what I just mentioned. Millennials want utility, Gen Z is more into entertainment. Very obvious, but then these numbers show that, the majority of the audience is also because younger audience in India. That's why. Now, the first thing is, and this is something that you can specifically ask questions around, that how do you initiate a digital campaign? Now, most of the time, what happens, we just get into tactics without understanding, without building the blocks. And that's the biggest mistake which most of the digital marketers do. They just jump into execution without thinking about the goals, the KPIs, and everything. And that's where it starts. So, in a typical organization, bigger organization, this is how it happens. There is a strategy which is made for the whole year. So when I say digital is not just one campaign. You need to think about the whole year. How are you going to engage with that same audience again and again throughout the year? That's why a strategy or a roadmap is very important. You may be doing 15 campaigns in a year, but then what those campaigns will be, what will be the calendar look like, what is the annual strategy for that, how do you define the objective, because eventually these smaller KPIs and goals will lead to a bigger goal of, whether it could be a marketer's goal or a business's goal. So strategy development and roadmap is very important. Then comes down to goals and objectives. So you may be having a bigger goal. For example, a bigger goal could be, I want to sell trimmers, by say, a growth of 40% over last year. That could be a bigger, number. But then when we cut down into various quarters, there is a business number. And then when we cut down into digital goals, it could be that to generate that amount of revenue from Amazon, I need to drive this much amount of traffic to Amazon, and these many conversions should happen on Amazon. So those kind of smaller and bigger goals need to be identified first. Creative and media brief. We set up the campaign, then we launch it, and then we monitor and optimize it. So we should always try, though we will be doing smaller campaigns in buckets, but we should always try to having an overarching effect, throughout the year. Otherwise, what will happen? My communication is going to the same customer or consumer, and he may just get confused. That's it. uh, Now, how do we write a digital brief? I'm starting with this because I've seen that, the most expertest of the digital marketers also do not know how to write a brief. When we write a brief, it is definitely not a prescription, it is not a blank check, it's not a recipe. It's a brief document which summarizes the client's communication or the campaign objectives. So each of these need to be present. We need to have a business context. If you do not put a business context, then typically agencies do not know what do you expect out of the campaign. And even if though they may not be generating revenue, they need to work more like a partner for the client rather than being an agency. So the way the things are changing, agencies are more behaving and should behave like a partner for the client or brands, and not just a vendor or just an agency. And that's why business context need to be shared among both of the stakeholders. Objectives I just mentioned, framework, budgets, channels, legal framework, all of those things need to be in place. Where are we? So what is our current state? Where do we want to go? And how are we want to, or at least some idea about, this is how I want my company to go from here to that place. So those things are very important. uh, Clearly mention, if your mom would read it, would she know what you want? So we should not assume that the agency knows everything. It's very important that you mention all of those things: business context, objective, success metrics. So if you see in a communication goal for digital, uh, you'll see it's very important that what are we promoting, which is the product, what is the campaign. So whether it's an awareness campaign, so I need to focus more on impressions and views, or it's an engagement and information dissemination campaign where I want to focus more on engagement metrics, or it's a revenue and transaction generating campaign where I need to focus my number of sellouts, how much revenue I am generating, all of that. So typically how the KPIs are defined is basis on your objective of the campaign. What do we want the agency to do? whether it's or and the consumer or customer to do, whether sign up for the event, buy the product, all of those things. And why should your audience believe or take the desired direction or action, which is, what is the reason that how, so basically USPs, why are is this product different than the other product. uh, Campaign goals I have just mentioned, high level campaign goals. So make sure that you have that format and you put all of these important things, which also includes your KPI target that you give for the campaign. It could be, say, a 1 million impression or 2 million impression, 20,000 clicks, 50 leads, something like this. Yeah. Uh, the questions we'll take up later on, Raj, in case if there are any. Yeah,
Sure,
do let me know.
sure, sure done, sure done.
Okay, now Belling the digital cat. So there are KPIs. We typically divide the customer into a funnel. Uh, the top of the funnel starts with the trigger or the awareness part, which is, when you can even talk about showing them the video. Now that's the trigger part, right? Then comes your consideration or active evaluation, where in the customer or the consumer knows about the brand or the product, but he doesn't know, why to select, what to select. uh, and then comes your conversion and transaction bit, which is more around price sensitivity, because the consumer or the customer wants to know exactly where am I getting the best price for the value that I get. So these are the three phases, and that's how we have divided the KPIs that we use in digital. So typically the impressions, CPM, views, VTR, CPV, which is cost per view. VTR, I'm sure that everybody knows about it. I'm just assuming that everybody knows about it, but I'll just highlight. Impressions is the number of times the ad is exposed. CPM is cost per thousand impressions. Views is number of views a video may achieve or get. VTR is view through rate. View through rate means uh, out of the video, how much percentage of the video is being viewed by the customer. So it could be 20%, 30%, or 60%, depending on the video, and depending on the platforms. Certain platforms, they do not allow you, so non-skippable videos may get a good VTR, may not also. Cost per view, we all know. Clicks, so after viewing the ad, if somebody clicks on it, that's a click. CTR is the ratio of overall exposures or impressions to the people who are clicking on it. So that rate is called CTR. CPC, cost per click. Visits is after I click on the ad, whether I landed on the landing page or not. If I landed, then that number is called the visit. Cost per lead is when we generate a lead, uh, the overall monies that I've spent on the campaign, what is the cost per lead, which is overall campaign spend upon the leads, and so on and so forth, which is ROAS. ROAS is typically, return on advertising spends. Whatever we spend, what is the kind of return that we are getting out of the spends. So these are some of the KPIs, not all of them, but these are the most mostly used in various campaigns. Uh, then in the brief, we also talked about the audience, which is who's the first priority audience, the core audience, then secondary audience, and then any additional audience that you would like to add. For example, for a trimmer, your core audience could be, a 20-year-old, 22-year-old, but then eventually you cannot stop a 30-year-old or a 40-year-old to also use the trimmer. So that's why, we kind of segregate it into core or primary, and into secondary, and then additional audience. Additional audience could be, somebody wants to gift that product to person, so those kind of things. Now, this is basically ABCD of digital creatives. When we say ABCD, A stands for attract, which is it needs to have the hook in the first 5 seconds. Now, how can we have that hook? You can use familiar faces, or you can use people with whom the audience can relate to or connect to. You can personalize the content. You can scale for screen size. So depending on the screen size, if your video, for example, is like, shot from a distance wherein you cannot see the protagonist, that's a big problem in digital, because the screen needs to be very clear, and the faces needs to be very clear. Similarly, B stands for brand. because the tendency of skipping a video or skipping a creative or moving on to other window is very high in digital. It's very important that you integrate your brands naturally and meaningfully. Otherwise, it'll look like an ad, definitely. uh, and it also depends on phase. So when I talked about the trigger or awareness phase, which is the first time that a brand is getting exposed to the customer, that phase probably the placement needs to be in the first initial 5 seconds. But when you talk about consideration phase, wherein the consumer already knows about the brand and the product, but he's evaluating and he's considering the brand, the intent is there, but he's considering the brand. That time you can put the placement of the brand probably slightly later on, and then talk more about the value that he will get. So it also depends, uh, on which creative is being used at which phases. I personally recommend that for each of these phases you should have a different digital creative. Same creative which works on trigger cannot work on conversion, because you need to highlight specific things in each of the phases, three phases that I talked about. So that's why I'm mentioning that. But at times, due to money constraint, or brands not agreeing to it, because still, a lot of the legacy brands, they are still very television heavy, so they just take that creative and then use it for digital itself, which doesn't work. But yeah, but otherwise, this is something that we should always highlight. uh, Tap into audio, emotion, pacing and storytelling, because that's also very critical. It has always worked and still works on digital. And be direct, because today's audience and consumers are very demanding and very direct, so they do not want beating around the bush. So that's why very strong call to action is also very important for even the returns there. uh, Again, where are you driving them? It's a landing page, it's a URL. In certain cases like Facebook lead ads, there may not be any landing page, the creative will have to play its own role. So that's how it may change. But then the landing page needs to be optimized, because eventually your rankings and your quality score on Google depends on the kind of content that you're using on landing page, the kind of URL that you have for the landing page, and where it stays on your website. Uh, as it mentioned, that a bad landing page can actually ruin a good campaign. So that's why we have to take care of this landing page, and having good videos and download of resources needs is required on this. Uh, Another, while I talked about all of this, it's very important that we make for digital, right? So gone are the days when when we were given the creatives and then we just had to execute a media plan. No, it should not work. That's why I said that digital needs to be placed in a more strategic role, right at the beginning of the conceptualization of the and the planning stage. It needs to be integrated with marketing, and that's why we said that we have to make for digital. Now what I'll do, I'll probably show you one video. Enjoy that. Yeah, so the whole reason of showing you this video is when I say make for digital, it means that your concept needs to be started and seeded with digital. It should not be an existing television ad to be used on digital, right? So the way that this campaign worked is it started with digital. The launch of 3000 series, which was a new trimmer launch, and the launch of a brand ambassador, which was Virat Kohli. It whole started with a digital platform wherein it was a kind of gimmick wherein we started the rumor. And nobody knew that it's a rumor because Philips was not mentioned anywhere else. It started with a rumor, but then gradually, it kind of started scaling up because of the whole, the format of it. And it kind of started coming on television and print free of cost, right? So it started with the digital campaign. There was a television print angle which we didn't initiate. It was initiated after almost 10 days of the campaign go live, only to leverage the digital platform. So that's how, when I'm saying that you need to make for digital, because this is what works on digital. You cannot use the creatives made on television and other places to be working on digital, right? Another thing is phasing for improved recall. Now typically what we have seen is, uh, in digital, unless until the user sees at least maximum of 3 times your brand, and it's a established phenomena. But it's more in digital, because in digital there is so much of exposure, so much of clutter, so many things coming, and then the attention span is so less that you need to show them the creative multiple times. So just showing them once won't work, and this is the place where you need to use lookalike. Is basically those features that we have in Facebook, Insta, all those places. You can use lookalike audience, you can use programmatic to identify which audience you had targeted in the trigger phase, and whether you've shown the ad to them or not. Now another interesting things that you can do with this phasing is, for example, a trimmer for 3000 and a trimmer for say 1500. If a person has seen a 3000 rupee trimmer and he has seen the ad but he didn't do anything, he went back or he bounced back, that means that person may be interested in a slightly lower price trimmer. And that's how all these kind of creative optimization A/B testing that you can do. So you can divert using programmatic, to the lower model creative, and to the lower model landing page. So these are the type of things that you can very easily do. We have lots of tools there. I will be talking about some of the tools in the later slides, but there are so many tools available which you can use. Even the platforms also give you that kind of a tool, to analyze and do analytics around it. So have always a 2 to 3 month plan, and not just 1 week or 2 week plan, because otherwise it won't work unless until it's a conversion funnel where people already are aware about the brand and they just need to buy it, right? uh, there are enormous platforms, we all know various inventories. Every platform has different kind of inventories available. How do we select is, one is obviously target audience, so my target audience need to be there on the platform. uh, Another thing is reach. So typically what we do in digital, we get fascinated with new platforms, because these are new platforms, really interesting platforms, but we hardly look at the reach that we could get basis our experience. So it's very important that we look at the reach that this platform has, and relevancy as well. Then the funnel stage you are. So for example, a platform like, a place where you just need to announce, which is a Twitter, maybe more to do with creating awareness or consideration, but Twitter may be less effective. I'm not saying it's not effective, but maybe less effective. And for the conversion funnel, maybe
Okay.
a Facebook and Insta may work better, or an Amazon marketing may work better. So those are the kind of selections that we have to do when we decide on the platforms. And also the creative concept, a very this particular concept which we developed of Virat Kohli, because the creative concept is very different, right? It's very different. It's about rumor. When it's a rumor, you cannot do ads. You have to rely on influencer marketing, non-branded stuff, native stuff. You cannot place a brand there. So we had to select platforms, men's XP and all, with a very native kind of articles, and with a very native kind of a video. And video was also leaked from sites who actually talk about, at times, gossips, or talk about certain things which may not be from the brand. So it depends on your concept as well, that what you are using, and accordingly you can select the platform. Similarly, if you have to do a lot of conversion focus, sellout driven, then the first thing should be selection of Amazon, Flipkart, and then moving on to other platforms, because eventually, uh, on Amazon, people who are there, they are there to buy, so they are closer, and they are there in the conversion funnel and not at the trigger funnel. Various analysis and optimization that you need to do. Typically what we have seen is reviews on Amazon, for example. If there are reviews, obviously your buying online percentage, that may increase by almost 82%. So this is the kind of effect which we have in case if we have reviews. So that's again becomes a very important thing, because when you're analyzing that why my conversions are not happening, it could be because your reviews are not being built there. So you need to do a parallel exercise of building those reviews. Similarly, centralization of online marketing. So you need to note together with all search, affiliate, video, social, display, everything, how it is contributing to the funnel and how much we are getting. So there are various tools which are available, which you can use always. You have double click, you have Zaxix, you have so many other tools available all the time. You can use all of those things. There are some smaller tools as well. Then you have those emotional trend line, or sentiment analysis tools. You have Sprinkler, you have Radiant 6. Many tools are there. I'm sure that you guys must be using that. I mean, in specific sessions, we can even talk about those tools, but you should use all those tools together. So when we are talking about campaign effectiveness, it should not be just the effectiveness of Google search or only programmatic. It should be effectiveness of all of them, because every platform has a role to play. You cannot expect a Twitter to work as a conversion funnel, but Twitter has a role to play in the overall ecosystem. Similarly, you cannot expect everybody who's searching in Google search to go and buy, because there could be a possibility that 15 days before I searched in Google just for my information, but eventually I went ahead and then purchased from a traditional store. So do I need to do here store visits for Facebook? Yes, we should do that. Do I need to look at retailer tie-ups? Yes, we should do that. Retailer tie-ups means that we place certain codes and certain mechanisms, so that we can know that how many purchases have happened at the store because of digital, because not necessarily everybody who's looking at digital may buy from digital. So that's why this is one more thing which the conviction that you need to give to the sales team and to the business head, is there are a lot of online assisted offline buying which is also happening. And that's why it's very important to kind of club everything together, because that's how you'll kind of get the pie there, because eventually the marketer or the business has limited budgets. How much is going on digital depends on how much value you are proposing that you will give or you are giving. So that's why analytics becomes very important here. You have a lot of viewability tools as well, so you know that what type of impressions are happening, is it good or bad. So all of that can be used. uh, Now, last part of the deck, and after that we can switch on to I think most of the people
Yeah,
have done this already, right? But if you can just type this URL, uh, if you have your mobile, see what is your score. People who do not have their mobile or laptops, they can do it later on. But then this is a URL which is www.linkedin.com/sales/SSI. So this will tell you the score that your LinkedIn profile has. Now, it's very important. We as marketers, we as digital marketers, we always build brands, but we hardly look at our personal brand, which is your LinkedIn pages, your Twitter pages, your Insta FB pages. Insta FB may be more of private in nature, but then LinkedIn page is very important there. And that's why if you aspire to to grow and then to go in bigger organizations, it's very important that your profile talks about you. We are very laborious, we at times kind of slog like anything, we work very hard, but only because we are not there present, because people, how will they find us? They may find us from LinkedIn and Google, and if you're not strong there, they may not even know that you have this in you. So type this URL, it will give you exactly the score. Few of them may be having a low score, few of them may be having a good score. But to improve this score, and this score depends on two things. One is obviously how your profile is. The second is also that how your peer group's profile is, right? So for example, in a uh, say public company, where people are slightly above 50-year-old, may not be that great digitally savvy. If they are your peers, then definitely your score, even if you do some bit of it, your score may go up, because your peers are also scoring that less. But if you are in the digital world where your peers are pretty strong, their profile on LinkedIn is very strong, that means you may, even with having a very good profile, you may still score low, right? So that's how it happens. um, Building a great profile, first thing is add a photo. So egg should not be there, it should be your photo, a good professional photo, right? Not a very casual photo, because casual photo may be kept there for a Facebook or Insta. For this you need a professional photo. uh, so photo can actually increase, or the type of photo can actually increase your profile views by 21 times. Then add your industry, because many at times your industry defines that what kind of work that you are doing. So that's why add your industry. The summary, because that's the only thing which is visible when I'm looking for you, so that needs to be really compelling. You need to focus on your career and accomplishments. And while I talk, that doesn't mean that my profile is great. It's needs to be revamped completely. But yeah, but I'm just telling you because these are the things which are very important there. uh, Detail your work experience, because this will give you 5 times more connection request. Now connection request should not always be, you need to have strategic connections. Even when you are doing in LinkedIn, you need to know that after 5 years or after 10 years, this is where I want to reach. To reach there, these are the type of people whom I need to be in the network with, so that I know what they are doing and I want to kind of follow them. So there are two type of people. One is people whom you want to follow, and the second type is people who follow you, right? So while you may have people who follow you very easily, you may not have to do too many things there. But people who you follow, it's very important that you add them to the network, because that increases your score even amongst your peers. And also it's give you a very different perspective of life. So that's why work experience and everything needs to be put there. Add examples of your work. In case of case studies, presentations and all, you can add videos where it has always turned out to be pretty good. Looking at people can see your work there. Add skills and get endorsed. Whatever skills you have, feel free to put it, and then people will be endorsing it. You can even ask some of your network to endorse it. It's a pretty old thing, everybody is doing it, but then no harm in keeping this if you have the skill, right? Because eventually it will be tested when you join any company. uh, Other things could be location, education, volunteer experience, because people do see that how much interested you are in cause, so please have it. Accomplishments, the languages, organizations and certifications and all of this, right? Follow companies, as I mentioned. You are defined by whom you follow and what type of companies you follow, because that's how people, unfortunately, but people do judge you when you are there on online, because they are not meeting you face to face. uh, Follow influencers, keep on doing updates and posts, because that helps you build a clout, and that helps you improve in the rankings. uh, this is not required that you do it all the time, that you're okay, I am going to some place today so I have to. It's not mandatory, but then once in a while, you should put that, just to make sure that the profile is alive and it then ranks well when a person is searching for it. Because most of the job requisitions these days also happen, and most of the consultant also find you from these. Include links and images, and then keep on publishing articles, because even though you may be younger in age or lower experience, but you have your thought. Be ready to uh, you know to show your opinion there, or to write about something that you feel really strong. This is it. So you can find me on LinkedIn. Yeah. Raj,
Yeah, thank you
something.
so much, Shweta, for sharing the wonderful and very well articulated knowledge and thing on that, especially the digital platform. I hope the participant and found a tremendous value for digital industry, especially how Philips are working in the digital platforms and the campaigns, the structures, how it should be planned out, some of the new things that you shared. Now, what we'll do is we'll be asking you some of the questions so that that our team has curated. So it will be helping the participant to know more about the digital and how the Philips are working. So my first
Sure.
question is since the next, if you talk about 5 to 10 years, it would be the role of the AI, role of the ML would be very high. So how I wanted to ask how the role of the AI and ML has increased into the Philips in the not only the customer acquisition but also the customer retention.
Okay. So, AI and ML, everybody talks about it. And as I initially mentioned when I started the deck, that it's very important that whenever we bring in innovation, there's a need, and there's a need to solve a problem. Now, in Philips, typically AI and ML is used in three things actually. One is obviously you rightly mentioned that customer care. So we recently created a chatbot, using an NLP for air purifier, because the whole reason was that air purifier in a case, it's very difficult. There are a lot of myths which you need to bust. uh, there are a lot of questions in people's mind, that whether I should use an air purifier or I shouldn't. If I use it, what will happen? Will my immunity go down? All those things. So, and obviously those kind of questions do keep on coming, and that's why the need was, and we realized that there are so many questions on this rather than conversion. Because Philips being a brand, there was no thinking about whether I should buy a Philips or not. But the problem was whether I should buy an air purifier or not. So I think that's where we use this and we introduce the chatbot. The other place that we do, so Philips as a company, we are into a lot into B2B healthcare as well, right? So we manufacture MRI machines, CT machines, ultrasound machines, your NIVs, which are ventilators, basically non-invasive ventilators, sleep apnea machines. So we do manufacture these machines, and many of these machines are connected, and they are already using machine learning. Reason being, for example, the monitors that are there, there are some IntelliSpace monitors which can be monitored. For example, in an ICU, you see some 6 7 monitors. So a doctor sitting at some other place can actually monitor those stats, and a lot of the clinical reports as well, sitting at a different place. Similarly, similarly, like cancer patients, the diagnosis is very difficult, right? So that's why, using a machine learning, what they did was that there are various reports of past previous patients, cancer patients, and how the typical cells have been behaving, and how the cancer cells behave, and what are the various symptoms, or the data points that if checked we can know that this patient may have cancer, something like that. So few things are still not, are still undergoing lot of legal and compliance, because you cannot just healthcare data, you cannot just publish it. But we are using some of that to draw inferences in certain healthcare products, and it's already inbuilt. So it's connected, so you can see, there are apps which can study it, and It's all using the natural language processing as well, because people can even ask questions in a random voice.
Okay, okay. I think that's a very well answered question. The next question is how Philips is leveraging the digital platforms during the lockdown. Because in the lockdown, it's very difficult for the sales process, the sales team to basically get the sales done. So, what are the strategies, especially on the digital platform, is Philips implementing to maximum utilization of the digital platform?
Hmm. So you're right. With lockdown, the biggest problem we faced is people are not buying from Amazon and Flipkart. They are actually not buying from store. So if you talk about the B2C bit business, definitely that has been impacted. The healthcare business has not been. I mean, there will definitely be some impact because the sales cannot go out and then talk. So some of the things is that this is the right time for any brand, not just Philips, for any brand to do a lot of engagement, to do a lot of brand building, and not just thinking about sellout or leads, because that's a very wrong way of doing it. For example, if Philips is into healthcare, what we have started doing is we have started doing a lot of webinars and a lot of customer engagement, which is not driven around come and buy my product, but it is more around this is how you use this application, if it already is, or these are the various features, or maybe this is how you diagnose using our machine, certain reports. Now that is a part of healthcare. In case of the B2C business, it could be more around styling, right? So how can you groom yourself staying at home? How can you cook various things using the kitchen appliances, right? So those kind of things wherein you are more connected with the customer, because the customer is still there at home. He's consuming a lot of content on digital and on various other platforms as well, but then majority of the time digital. So that doesn't mean that you should completely cut the umbilical cord and not engage with them. You should definitely engage with them, though coming up with a different proposition which they can use. So that's
Okay,
how, yeah.
okay, great, great. I think that that's very well answered. The next question is since Philips is utilizing almost all the digital platforms available, according to you, what are the three most important digital channels for Philips, which is getting the maximum sales for them?
Which is getting the
I know
maximum.
sales. I know it's difficult to measure, but I think since the experience knowledge that you have, what would like to share the three most important channels?
See, I may not like to answer this very bluntly, and I'll tell you why, Raj. Because see, it's everybody knows that Amazon will say that I am getting you the maximum conversion because it is a conversion platform. But the reality is that why people are there on Amazon, right? They must have seen an ad somewhere. They must have been interacting with an ad outside before deciding on or being at the conversion funnel. So that's why I was talking about the funnel. uh, if you talk about numbers only, obviously, whatever marketing that you'll do on Amazon, or whatever marketing that you'll do, say a Facebook lead ads, which gives me direct conversion, you'll always see that conversions are very high. But that is not how a marketer should measure it. Because if you start doing it, what will happen? You will not increase the top of the funnel. You'll always keep on spending money on conversion, and you'll end up being at the same place every year. So you will not grow. Because if you do not put more people in the top of the funnel, you will not get more conversions, or you will not grow. So for example, this year you may get 20,000 sellouts or products sold. Next year also you may just increase it to 25,000 because more in people, or in case if if a competition comes up, then maybe 15,000, right? Because your strategy is just targeting conversion uh, platforms. But if you look at numbers, obviously conversion platform last click mile will always work, right? You'll always see the last platform which from where you get the transactions will always uh, beat the game.
I think what I sense from the response that you give me, I think the major e-commerce platform, social
Yes.
media platform, and the influencer marketing being the key digital platform to get you maximum sales. What I can sense from the answers that you give. Am I right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
Okay, okay, great. The next question is, can you just enlighten, since Philips is running so many numerous campaigns across the year? Can you just enlighten for our participants since they are new to the digital industry? Any sample campaigns by Philips step by step? Just any sample campaign that you can share?
Uh, okay, so there was one which I had shared. Another one which I can share, from probably the healthcare, because that's the most difficult one to do. In our healthcare, there's a business called sleep and respiratory care. So I'm not very sure whether people know about sleep apnea. Sleep apnea is an ailment wherein people kind of lose their breath for some time when while they are sleeping, and it could be a kind of a serious disease later on going on. Now the problem here in India is, and the typical symptom of that is snoring. The problem here in India is a lot of people snore because of our habit, because of our neck structure, because people slightly being obese. So that is why, and a lot of people do suffer from sleep apnea, but they don't know that they are suffering from sleep apnea, right? So the biggest challenge was, one, to tell them about sleep apnea. Second is to tell them that, okay, even if you have sleep apnea, you need to use a machine, because that machine looks like really scary machine with a mask on your face, and with all those wires around you. So it's very scary. And then even if they are using the machine, whether the machine is helping them or the machine is making them more dependent, so the after effects, so all of that was very difficult. And then we divided kind of audience into three types of buckets. One is people who don't even know about sleep apnea. Second is, there was one more problem that this business was facing, is people, even if they have been diagnosed with sleep apnea, still they are not using the machine because of the same reason. So that kind of audience wherein we need to tell them that this is not risky. You need to do it. If you do not do use it, then it could be risky. So communicating that, but in a very humorous manner, because it looks so scary with all those masks and everything, that people will say, okay, fine, I don't want to become a patient, right? So telling them that this is very normal. A lot of bigger leaders and celebrities also at times they have this problem and they use it. You have portable solutions as well, which you can take it and travel. And okay, something happened. So yeah, so that was, so we started a very funny video with called Sleepy Uncle, because we wanted to also tell people that it's using it a humor as an angle. Sleepy Uncle, which was hashtag Sleepy Uncle. We tried telling people that these are the kind of symptoms which may happen, that people may forget, people may sleep. At times people in a gathering suddenly start sleeping and then snoring, which is also very funny. So we started with that, and then we used certain platforms, because this was a channel which needs to target 35 plus, but on digital. Now obviously that was again one more challenge, so we tried finding other platforms. We triggered it. We use trending as well, because a lot of these people are professionals and they kind of influencers. They have a really bad lifestyle, because of they are workaholic most of the time. So that's why we started targeting all these entrepreneurs and people who really have, who are in media, or some of these industries where the work life is not that great. So we selected platforms. We used the trigger for that video. We created another video which was called "Don't Sleep on It." That means if you have a symptom, please do not sleep on it. It kind of garnered a lot of things. Sorry, a lot of visits as well. Uh, it was very popular, the trigger, as well as the whole trending bit of it. We used a lot of content marketing and influencer marketing. We used a lot of celebrities as well, because eventually this TG still believes in, not believes in, but at least listens to, and this is how India is, right? So Bollywood and cricket, something which always sells here. So that's why we used it. And yeah, so there was a lot of noise around it, and that was the objective. Eventually, because of the noise, we also tried to capitalize on the second type of audience, which is people who have already been diagnosed but they are not buying the machine. The sellout increased, the kind of number of leads increased almost 100 times. So that's how the campaign went ahead. The model of the campaign was, because it's a distributor led campaign, so eventually the goal was to generate leads and not send them to Amazon, because without a prescription you cannot get a machine. So it's a very challenging kind of a campaign, but very interesting, because we created a lot of consumer angle and a propensity there to reach out to the audience.
I hope the participants are clear with the step-by-step campaign. So many people messaged me personally, please ask this question, and this is where my supplementary question is. Since already you have mentioned about the digital campaign step by step, my supplementary question is how digital marketing campaigns evolved over a past couple of years for Philips with respect to consumer behavior.
Hmm. Okay. So, I have been with Phyllis for 3 years. So before that, whatever was happening, not very clear. But if you talk about the way that it has changed, so when I had joined, I guess Philips never did tried OTTs. Uh, they never tried influencer marketing. I don't think any organization was trying OTTs a lot.
No.
I guess 4 years back, right? So that is the way that the landscape has changed suddenly, because people are consuming a lot of content, video content. They are consuming content on filter copy, on idivas, and all these places. So obviously content marketing and influencer marketing becomes very important there. So those were the things which kind of started happening. We tried our first OTT platform, Hotstar, for the sleep apnea campaign, which was very strange because the consumer business just, I mean, rather than consumer business, it was the healthcare business who started it. And then eventually, definitely for all uh, grooming, categories and all, we started using various other OTTs there. So yeah, that's how the landscape has changed. The way that we have started understanding and integrating digital with the plan has changed a lot. Earlier, Philips, very few categories were using digital creatives means digitally conceptualized creatives. Very few categories were doing it, but currently almost all the categories are doing that. So that's why I said that we need to make for India, sorry, make for uh, uh, digital. And yeah, so that's how it has changed, the landscape has changed suddenly. And also in terms of the ANP, so we were quite low in terms of the ANPs which were there earlier. It has increased almost 3 times.
Great,
ANP
great,
means
great.
the advertising budgets, yeah, for digital.
Great, great, great. So I think most of the participants are clear about the questions that are. This is my last questions that I'm asking, and then I'll take up the participant questions that they have put it on the chat window. So the last question is: I hope the COVID-19 gets over very fast. So what you are expecting post COVID-19? The demand of the digital professionals, especially, would that gonna increase or stabilize, or with the all the startups and brands are putting the work from home and layoff, where do you see the demand of the digital professional?
It'll increase. It'll increase, and it's only COVID is not responsible for that. So many other events that we have seen in the past, for example, demonetization, right? Demonetization, however, the rest of the many businesses were facing issues, but digital professionals actually kind of benefited, because with the online payment gateway, all of those increasing, the digital India scheme of the government, that kind of helped a lot. So definitely that has improved. Now obviously your company may not perform well because of certain things, but for the digital professionals, definitely it was great. The geo movement, right? So geo, because of the rates, definitely it kind of benefited the amount of data which was consumed even by the tier 2 tier 3 cities, even with the low handsets. So that's where it has changed. And similarly with COVID, I do see that people are, and in fact we are already seeing it. We do see reports coming from the agency, from Kara and everybody, that this consumption pattern has suddenly changed a lot. People are consuming a lot of digital there. And even 35, even 40, 45 plus, at times B2B, for example, physicians are doctors, they are using a lot on digital. And suddenly the focus is a lot on digital. And television has also seen an increase there, but then digital has been there as in increasing media consumption habit.
Great, great, great. So I think the answer is very pretty clear. The rise of the digital professionals would be only going the on higher side, just like
Yeah.
COVID graph is going. We'll take up the participant questions or those who have put me on the chat window. So I think one of the questions that has been put is Shweta, it's there since economy. I'll just read it out. The since economy is shaken, the investment of individual, and it will surely be affected on every segment, be it the personal goods or luxury. How any e-commerce brand should plan out the digital strategy after the lockdown is over. So he basically want to ask the impact of the COVID-19 on the different segments.
So as I mentioned that same as digital, definitely e-commerce platforms will see a slight rise, in terms of the growth. And it's bound to, because people will have form certain habits and they'll continue to do it. However, there are other challenges as well. So when I say e-commerce, it's not just about the payment gateway, it's also about the logistics and the supply chain, which has been badly hit because of COVID. Because it has been badly hit, there could be certain repercussions of that, which will kind of, at times jeopardize the growth. But we need to look at things in a more comprehensive manner, and not just looking at one part of it. So maybe people using the payment gateway will increase, people buying more things from Amazon may, or e-commerce platforms may increase. But that is the part, the supply chain part, which I just mentioned, could be one of the issue there, which one needs to solve.
I hope your query is resolved. The next question is by Yogesh. He's want to ask how Philips is using the CSR to promote its brand message
So
during the COVID-19.
right. So typically every organization, big organization, they have that responsibility, for CSR, not only around COVID, but then otherwise as well. So otherwise as well, we were talking a lot about childhood pneumonia, and that was the theme that we had taken. But yeah, for COVID, definitely there are so many other things on the ground, as well as the deductions which are happening. There are voluntary services which have started for COVID. There have been some, and you may see that update on internet, that there have been some donations, by CSR as well as by the employees, where one day salary, kind of things, they are giving. So those things plus voluntary services, because all our CSR voluntary services and Philips Foundation, they are on the ground, at various places, and they are supporting that. Much of the details you can definitely get from the CSR head, of Philips, which he'll tell you better.
I hope your query is resolved, Yogesh. The next question is regarding the influencer marketing. So, Bright Future wants to ask what kind of influencer marketing campaign that Philips run, and how they identified the top quality influencers across the digital platforms.
Right. So we have done almost, influencer marketing is currently almost an intrinsic part of all the plans. I will take one example. Recently, there was and it's a very recent example around World Sleep Day, again for the sleep apnea business. Now, World Sleep Day, we wanted to create some awareness around it, and we selected influencers. When we select influencers, there are two, three things we want to see. One is obviously reach, because you need to get a combination of influencer. You need to look at their reach. If the reach number itself is just 30,000, how will you generate more views around that? So that's where your reach is important. But then relevancy is also important. So when you're selecting the influencers, it's also about whether they have been talking about health, or they have been talking about certain areas which is connected with the product. The other is about mass, because if influencer marketing is not reaching to a, significant threshold number, it may not pick up. So the way that it happens is you need to go to a significant number uh, for that to pick it up. If you're just going and then creating just say a 5,000 views, it may not help. Then it's better that you go to Google and then Facebook and then get those views. So the whole idea of influencer is the viral effect, which is you need to select one person who's very related to the brand. There's one person also who gives you more reach, right? So that's how we kind of select and combine the influencer marketing. The other is influencer marketing we keep on doing, on the grooming part, which is your trimmers, and your beauty products, which is straightener and hair dryers. So there also we use a lot. We at times also use certain known influencers in television and in Bollywood, but we also go and then select at times. For example, for Priya Malik, we were doing it for Philips Avent, which is a brand, and we selected certain influencers who were very strong in terms of what they say and how females trust them. So that's why we selected her. uh, yes, we selected for sleep apnea. We also selected RJ Naved, because we realized that he has a good following, and because a lot of these people, they also listen to him most of the time on radio. And also it kinds of goes to a mass which is relevant to our audience. So that's how we select the influencers.
Okay, okay, great. We have the Rahul. He has asked, has any time in your career you have adopted the non-conventional approach of viral marketing and guerrilla marketing to spread the message of the campaign?
So the video that I had just shown, that is a kind of viral marketing. If you look at the spends, it's I will not be able to tell you the spends, but it was uh, it was very minuscule. But the kind of returns we got is huge. So we tried that because we had very little spend, but we had to do a big thing. So that's how, when we do kind of a viral marketing, which automatically it has its own leg, and then it kind of spreads very quickly. So your idea needs to be very intriguing, so that, and exciting, so that people just start sharing about it and talking about it.
Okay, great. I hope that clears your doubt. There is one more question by Sejal. So she's asking if what is the process of getting a digital marketing internship at Philips? So what is the process?
Okay, so it is already mentioned on the website. You can search for it. However, for internships, we already, the HR team is connected with some institutes, and the interns as well apply for that. So just keep looking at the website, and they have it there, and they publish it. At times, you also get to know from the employees working there, because
Exactly,
most of the
exactly.
employees, they're aware about that what interns may be coming. Yeah.
Hmm. Okay, okay, great. So I think this is what sums up the entire Q&A. So I think that was the entire session was all about. We had done the presentation part. We taken a very interesting questions from the participants and by our team as well, so that you can understand the digital industry better and make the webinar the more interactive and more creative. So thank you so much from the entire Digital Gurukul family, Shweta, for accepting the invitation and taking the session with all the professionals. And I think this was a wonderful session. And to request to all the participants, those who have joined for the session, what you can do is you can just take a picture of the screen that is in front of you. You can take the picture again. You can put it on LinkedIn. Shweta is there on LinkedIn. She's there on Twitter as well, I assume. So you can just take a picture. You can share your feedback about the webinar, what you understood, what the new knowledge and values that you got, and then you can share your feedback. So that will be great for us during the lockdown, because everyone is at home, and the we committed to deliver the more value-driven session for everyone. And yeah, so this was all about the session, and most of the very positive messages are I'm getting on the chat window. Thank you so much. It was the best session that they have ever attended. That was very informative session. So I think I'm requesting everyone, those who are messaging me personally, kindly go to the social platform, tag us on Digital Gurukul, Philips, and Shweta on LinkedIn. So that will help us way to invite more such the leading experts onto a digital masterclass series. So with that note, we'll end up the webinar. Thank you so much. It was
Thanks.
amazing. Please.
Thanks a lot. Thank you, everybody. And any questions, I'm there on LinkedIn, so you can connect and then we can talk. Yeah.
Okay, so one last round of applause for the Shweta, please. That would be great thing.
Thank
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It was
thank
very
you.
well informative, Shweta.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Thanks. Bye bye.
Bye bye.